Welcome to this episode of The Good, the Bad and the Odd. We're your host, Michael Sam. Hi, Sam.
Hello there.
So we're doing our next Hammer installment, which is Dracula A.D. 1972. Interesting one, this, because this is the only gothic horror they put out in 1972. They did a few other psychological sort of horrors, but we're not covering those this year. But
probably a bit of a misnomer there.
So
horror,
what?
I'd say, would be even a pretty big...
I wouldn't disagree. But just to put it in context, 71, the year before, they put these: Vampire Circus, Countess Dracula, Lust for a Vampire, Creatures the World Forgot, Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde, Blood from the Mummy's Tomb, Twins of Evil, Hands of the Ripper. That's a lot of films, right? We didn't cover the Creatures the World Forgot because it's a goofy knockoff of, they're dinosaur ones, but there's no dinosaurs in that one, so what's the point? It's big drop off.
Yeah.
And Dracula A.D. 72, they were trying something different. Wow. Well, what did you think of it?
This is a bad movie.
I think it's a fun movie.
I like Hammer's ongoing, alternate ways to utilize vampire weaknesses. So, for example, in Brides of Dracula, they use a windmill to make a giant cross shadow. In this one, we open with Dracula getting staked with a carriage wheel.
Well, yeah, and there's a few other more creative ones, which we'll talk about when we get to, I guess. I mean, the pluses for me was this, unbelievably, is only the second time we see Van Helsing and Dracula together in Hammer, right? That is weird when you think about it. All these Dracula films are no Van Helsings. And the only other Van Helsing we've seen didn't have Dracula in, right? It was Brides of Dracula, but it didn't have Dracula. So this is only the second time we see Van Helsing and Dracula. And interestingly, it's not the Van Helsing we're used to. It's his grandson.
It's his grandson, yeah.
And he's played quite differently by Cushing, right? It's quite a different performance.
He's quite a scared guy.
Yeah, not like...
Quite jumpy. He's not the, burning himself with, a blacksmith's iron to burn it while dousing himself with holy water to fight a vampire bite.
We do get a return to that Van Helsing in a film we're going to be covering in a few more episodes, which is Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. That goes back to the original Van Helsing, just so you know. So there is a return to that eventually. But this is his grandson, right? Lorimer Van Helsing.
Yeah.
There are some pluses through this film, but we can talk about it as we go. But there's a lot of ridiculousness, right?
Yeah.
I quite like the crash cut, but we'll talk about the opening sequence more fully, but I like the crash cut from the end of the opening sequence straight into the sky and we see a jet plane. That is quite a striking cut, right? Not quite 2001, the bone turning into a spaceship, but, it's something. The opening was pretty kick-ass, I thought, actually.
Them having like a carriage fight, and then eventually he's stakes him in the rain. Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
And then it's it cuts to a party where our main characters are just crashing it.
Yeah.
And,
the honourable film tradition of having teenagers played by people that are about 30. Yeah. And I mean... These are supposed to be hippies, and they're this must have made them cringe even when it came out, right?
Yeah.
Because it's an old bloke's hippie story, isn't it, really? It's an old bloke trying to write hippies. It feels like that's how it feels.
Yeah.
On the plus side, we get Peter Cushing back. Though it's a different type of Van Helsing, but it's Peter Cushing, right? So, fine.
Yeah.
Also, I think Christopher Lee, he didn't have much to do, but what he did, it was pretty good. He was a proper animal in this.
Yeah, but it was closer to vampire Dracula as he appears in Castlevania.
Yeah,
if you've seen that, there's a whole bit where one of the main characters who's from a family of vampire hunters, basically swings a punch at him and he goes, "Oh, you're a Belmont," and it's oh no, there's a whole history here. And he's like, oh, you're a Van Helsing. I'm going to kill you.
Yeah. So that was the pluses. That was the pluses, really. Cushing, the opening sequence, Cushing and Lee. There was a few other little flourishes I really liked too, but they were few and far between. The soundtrack was bananas. Did you catch that? Funky.
Well, no, I'd just say it was bad. But yeah.
I thought it was alright, but it was just so jarring. It wasn't that.
No, they're like doing like a black mass, and it's just playing like jazz music. It's bad.
Like funky jazz kind of stuff. Yeah. And that score was all the way through, wasn't it? The wah wah kind of, all that sort of stuff. It was basically a blaxploitation soundtrack done by white people, right? That's what it sounded like. That's really what it sounded like. So it's amazing they actually followed this up with another one, which we'll be getting to, and they managed to get Christopher Lee involved again. Amazing. And Peter Cushing. Okay, so it opens, and there is a voiceover at the beginning, quite unusually, telling you the year is 1872, and telling you about the evil Dracula has come to London.
It specifies him as the demon vampire Dracula.
The demon vampire,
as opposed to, the regular vampires that are around.
Yeah. It's interesting this because it specifically, in fact, this one, a bit like Taste the Blood of Dracula, where it starts invoking satanic stuff with Dracula specifically. Taste the Blood of Dracula had it, and in fact, many of the plot elements are similar, right? To Taste the Blood of Dracula.
This is just another fop, trying to do a black mass, and it kind of just activates Dracula in the middle of town. Characters have to deal with it. That's kind of just it.
But interestingly, the fight we see, basically they're on a carriage, it's going mad. Old Van Helsing gets thrown off, the carriage crashes. We see Dracula staggering around because he's got a spoke of the carriage wheel in his chest, but it hasn't gone all the way in. And we get old Van Helsing, who's also quite badly injured, it has to be said. Uses the last bit of strength to hammer it home and kill Dracula, who we don't even see him crumbling. They don't even use the effects that they did in 1958. They cut away, and when they turn back, we see a grey skeleton with a wig on, right, basically. And then turn into dust.
And then cut away, cut back, and then there's dust.
And then Van Helsing promptly dies as well at the same time because of his injuries. Then we see a bloke ride up who looks startlingly like the bloke we see from the 70s, presumably his ancestor, who takes some of the... This is really confusing because he takes some of the ashes, not much, just some of the ashes of Dracula, the little glass bottle thing, vial, and then goes... Van Helsing's funeral in 1872. We see them intoning the funeral, and he just kind of walks quite close. I mean, surely the mourners can see him, and digs a little hole and pours the ashes in to the hole of Dracula. Right, that's it. So, but the thing is, later on we see the same bloke, or what looks like the same bloke, presumably his descendant, carrying a glass jar of ashes. So it's like, that doesn't work. They weren't even bothered enough to actually
keep continuity.
So we know that Van Helsing was buried in a thing, and also quite interestingly, his epitaph says in Latin, and I can't remember the actual words. Rest in final peace, not rest in peace, but rest in final peace.
Requiescat in pace ultima.
Oh, okay, there you go. And it turns out, and also mentions they were this carriage ride was in Hyde Park. That's mentioned in the So in London, doesn't look anything like Hyde Park.
No, it's like a dense forest. That's not Hyde
it's
Park.
Bray Woods near the studio, I reckon. But anyway, so
cut to modern day, as it were.
Yeah, with a crash cut to a jet plane, which is kind of cool, and funky music.
These people tearing up a party.
They're basically these 30-something hippies have crashed a party, and they are the bloke who's having the party, who's like this toffee-nosed geezer, young bloke and his parents, and they've just invited their friends, haven't they, from the look of it, from the party? Because it's all these old middle-class people sort of outraged at these hippies having fun, because they got like go-go dancers on the piano and tables, and they're making out under the tables, and all this.
And it's just alternating cuts of that, and then like the
band
tops looking, the band and the tops looking horrified.
Yeah,
They clearly had a lot of confidence in this music.
They put it all the way through.
They put it all the way through, but there's also a whole bit where they're like the son of the homeowner, the hostess, is like, right, I'm calling the police, and the hippie's like, I reckon we got 8 minutes. 8 minutes? No, 4 minutes. 4.5, 5.
Yeah, they spend their fun party
it.
time guessing how long it'll take before the cops turn up, because they want to leave.
But then we do like that length of time in just music and like shots of the dancing. It's like, can we get back to the Dracula, please?
Yeah, and the band playing is called Stoneground, a real band, apparently.
Okay.
Apparently the soundtrack was released in 2009 for the first time. How about that? 2009. And they sing an Alligator Man song, right? And some other song, I can't remember what it was.
They sing a lot of bad music.
Yeah. I quite like the music. I'm just old, though. I'm just old, right? But it just made me laugh that...
Kids, so...
Yeah. Oh, one of the hippie guys in the gang is dressed as a monk for some reason, and being cheeky. They obviously watched something like A Hard Day's Night, thought, we need cheeky chappies, Yeah. And then the cheeky chappie giving these... saying to these outraged old ladies and men, I'd phone the police if I were you. These are terrible. They're antisocial and everything and all this. Yeah. And God, these hippies.
Okay, so like to roll into like some character names here, we've got Gaynor, we got Laura, we got Greg, we have Jessica Van Helsing and Johnny Alucard.
Johnny Alucard. Now this actor I thought was pretty good. Actually, he was quite charismatic, and he was the one we saw getting the dust at the beginning. And he wears a stupid hat, like a stevedore hat, doesn't he, as well? Like at a funny angle to indicate he's a cool dude. That made me laugh a lot. Did you laugh?
Well, what really distracted me was he looks like Robert Mitchell, so...
He looks like what?
What's his name? Mitchell and Webb.
Oh, God, he does, doesn't he? Yes, I hadn't noticed that before. He really does. Robert is it Robert Webb? Robert Webb. Yeah. I thought, what's he talking about? Christopher Neame is the actor. I've seen him in other stuff. He's quite charismatic. It's quite good.
And his stint later as, spoilers, a vampire really reinforces to me that the only people that can pull off a threatening like hiss as a vampire is Christopher Lee and Bela Lugosi.
Yeah, well, there's others, but yeah, I kind of say this. Apparently, what got this going, what got Hammer Juice for doing this idea was there was a successful modern day vampire film American one called Count Yorga Vampire. And that's not a bad film. I mean, it looks a bit dated now, but it's not a bad film. And there was two of those Count Yorga films: Return to Count Yorga Vampire and Return to Count Yorga, and that's what got them the idea. Let's do a modern day Dracula. Okay. And apparently there was a weird case going on in London where it sounds like a media storm in a teacup kind of thing. A bloke, a journalist passing Highgate Cemetery where there'd been some desecrations or something, saw a grey-faced man just walking around, and then other people started, and then the press said, it's the Highgate Vampire. So that was part of it too. Mental, isn't it? It's mental. So yeah. Anyway, they all leave this party and they're sitting in a club called the Cavern, and sort of saying, and Johnny Alucard starts going, we need to do something even more extreme.
We need to find something more fun to do. I know. Let's do like the Devil's Sacrament. Let's
And Jessica Van Helsing,
that.
played by Stephanie Beacham, says, "Isn't that supposed to be dangerous?" And all this. Also, we should mention Caroline Munro's here as Laura. She looks gorgeous. As she usually does, but she's well into it. She's let's do that.
She's erotically into this.
So like, good performance by Caroline Munro, I'd say as well.
So we get to them. They break into a church and do this Black Mass thing, and Caroline Munro. Well, first off, like Johnny Alucard's doing his whole I join thee in the name of the devil.
Oh yeah, and he gets all these demons' names, Asphael and all this. Now, before we go any further, I just got to mention this is directed by someone I've not done any Hammer before, called Alan Gibson. Screenplay was by Don Houghton, who hadn't written any. So these are not anyone we ever associate with Hammer, and the music is clearly not James Bernard, right? So this is a very weirdly atypical compared to what we're used to, right? Anyway, so go on. He's intoning all this things.
He's intoning all those things, and then he points at what's her name, Van Helsing?
Jessica.
And it's like, Jessica, and it's like, you will be the sacrifice, and she's like, no.
Like any sane person would say, no.
And then Caroline Munro jumps up and is like, take me, Johnny,
I think she's got the hots for Johnny. That's what it is, right? And then he's got this cup and like loads of blood starts pouring out. It's a bit like Taste the Blood of Dracula, where they.
But then he spills it.
Yeah.
He just knocks the cup.
Yeah.
And it's like gets dumped all over her, and then run away because it's like, oh Jesus Christ, she's got blood.
This is grim. And meanwhile, Dracula suddenly becomes resurrected. He does get the glass. He gets a glass fire.
That's where the blood initially comes from. In the blood.
That's right. I remember now. And he puts the bite on Laura, so that's the end of Caroline Munro, right? Now this is in a church in the middle of Chelsea, but it's run down, it's deconsecrated, it's surrounded by building sites.
It's so bad that like vampires can't walk on holy ground there. But
well, let's say again, like Taste the Blood of Dracula. He lived in a church, right?
He lived in a church until it decided not to be like that anymore.
Yeah, very weird, that one. We don't have that sort of turn here though. So Dracula's basically stays in this church the whole film, right?
Yeah, he just hides there.
Yeah, and that works.
That's the halfway point where everyone knows he's in there.
Yeah.
But no one's going to step foot in that goddamn church. It's
Dracula. Right. Anyway, some boys playing football decide to kick an hole in the fence and climb through, and then they find the body of Laura. They're just standing there staring at her body, right?
At the same time, all the hippies are at this bar, and Johnny kind of wanders up. It's like, hey guys, what's going on? And they're like, yeah, what the fuck happened? What the fuck was all of that?
And he starts saying, it was a show.
It's fine. It's like, so where's Laura? And she's like, oh yeah, she's back off to Ramsgate to mooch off her parents for a bit. It's like,
what? It doesn't sound likely. And he even says, it was stage blood. And he puts he gets out a tablet of stage blood.
This little tablet, puts it in a jar. It's like, look, see, and it's just slightly pink.
Slightly pink water, and what they're going,
it's like
look like
really
blood to me, mate.
Squash.
Yeah. It looks like watermelon juice or something. I don't know. However, besides this, the policemen find Laura, and because it's on a church ground and it's all a bit mysterious and weird, they go and see Lorimer Van Helsing, who's an expert in the occult.
He's a local occultist. They mention he's like previously helped them out with people who were in, I presume, non-supernatural cults previously.
Yeah.
Some rapport with the police there, but yeah. So yeah, he keeps being mysterious. Like, I love how just every time he's like, "Well, don't you think it might be a vampire?" Just every time it suggests something alternate.
I have to say, Lorimer Van Helsing has got a kick-ass portrait of Dracula. Did you see that on the wall? It's mental, isn't it?
Scratch of Dracula. It's like horrifying. Why would you keep that in your house?
It's like it was scaring the shit out of you.
Like mystical attack against Dracula.
Yeah, so. It's like the most horrific picture you've ever seen. It was a really good picture, and also it's got a paint.
Pictures from the that first episode of the Night
Gallery.
The guy's like sees his dead uncle climbing out of the grave.
Yeah. So. Or it's a bit like Goya, Francis Bacon, one of those painters that do horrific imagery. It's one of them. But he's also got a portrait of his grandfather above the fireplace too, looking grander and younger,
Yeah, so...
and then the policeman mentions his granddaughter might be slightly involved because she was a friend of the murdered woman, right?
Yeah.
And Lorimer gets totally mortified. He goes, no, and then someone mentions Alucard, and Van Helsing laboriously writes out the name Alucard and puts Dracula underneath, and then just draws lines between each of the letters. It's like, God, it doesn't take that long to work out his Dracula moment. Now it's not actually established.
It's making me appreciate the guys from the Universal one that had it.
Yeah,
they literally the second they saw it, they were like Dracul and got interrupted. So
yeah. It was a touch of that, wasn't there? And then we see Johnny saying, "Oh, I've got tickets to this jazz concert," and one of the girls, Gaynor, he said to Jessica, he goes, "Do you want to come, Jessica?" And one of the girls says, "Oh, I'd sell my soul for a ticket." And Johnny's like, "We don't have to do that yet." Oh, God. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, we get kind of a loop here of Jessica refuting that she's associated.
She's swerving all this stuff, right?
Ducking her grandpa and Johnny Alucard, and Johnny bringing people back for Dracula to buy.
And Dracula getting madder,
whining at him. He's like, "You should give me the gift. I deserve the gift." And
Dracula's, "You deserve." And Christopher Lee's shit your pants scary here. He is actually proper scary. How this guy didn't shit his pants, and kept whining on, I don't know, because Dracula in the past would have just killed him, right? I'm sure of it. But in the end, he goes, because he's so wants Jessica Van Helsing, I guess. It's
a spite thing at this point.
Yeah, and actually, he does put the bite on Johnny and turns him into a vampire.
Turns him into a vampire. And there's probably the first time this has happened in one of these horror films. We get a full fight with a vampire in daylight.
Yes.
Fighting around a room while it's full day outside.
And we laugh at this, but you know what? I think that actor playing Johnny sold this fight because it was really goofy.
Yeah, because it was goofy and low budget, and it ended with him being pushed into a bathtub.
Yeah, no, well, the running water, the shower, the running
water, and it killed him. But the visuals are like Van Helsing pushed him into a bathtub. So but before that, I had to laugh because he bursts into flat and says, "Where's Jessica's? I don't know." And then we do see Johnny trying to remove a crucifix earlier, but he's a vampire, so the cross gets burnt into his hand. Yeah.
And Van Helsing grabs his hand and said, "Really?" And can see the cross. And then he reveals his fangs, and old Van Helsing's shocked because he doesn't know what to do. Right.
This is where I was saying no one can really pull off a vampire snarl except Christopher Lee and Bela Lugosi, because this guy he does the thing where he pulls his lower lip back into his mouth, and it just looks silly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it looks goofy. And Van Helsing doesn't know what to do, but then he realised Johnny actually gets repulsed by the sunlight. So he grabs a mirror and starts basically reflecting the beam in his room. And it's like he's getting punched in the face. It's well funny. This. And in the end, he accidentally knocks his shower on, falls in the bath and knocks his shower on, which means he's a vampire in running water. Vampires cannot resist. We've never seen. I don't think I've seen any other vampire film where running water comes into it.
I know apart from like a weakness, but I've never seen it used.
The only thing I can think of is at the end of Dracula Prince of Darkness. Do you remember Father Sandor shoots the ice and Dracula falls into the ice? The water then and dies. Yeah, that's the only other time I can think of. That's the only
water association I can think of.
Yeah. So but it kills Johnny. His face starts getting like white and grey. Yeah. Chemical burn face. And he just dies. But he's left in the tub. Van Helsing immediately calls the police, so they come and they're like, wow, it's a vampire. Stabbed, it's clearly a vampire, right?
Yeah. But then, Jessica gets hypnotized at this point? I think?
No, Johnny has already put the bite on Bob. Well, I think we've skipped some actually. Jessica's boyfriend Bob goes to the Cavern Club, and Johnny. Well, we don't see it, but Johnny obviously puts a bite on him and turns him into a vampire, which gets him to bring Jessica, but she escapes. There's all this going on. We also see Bob. Johnny's died, but we see Bob just dead in a graveyard. Van Helsing's approaching the
church. I assume it's like your progeny of
Johnny's. Johnny died, so you've died. So he's just lying there with the same
he was birds. Like Dracula just drank him dry.
It might be, or he's a vampire, but he don't know what to do. So when the sun came out, he just got caught. I don't know. Yeah. It's never explained.
Entirely possible.
So anyway, now he's tracked Johnny. He's worked out the church. I can't figure out how he works it out, but he works out the church is the place to go. Yeah. Presumably because of all the corpses around it, right?
Yeah, that would. But would certainly do.
I think it's daylight, and we don't see it, but he actually creates a trap of a pit full of stakes, doesn't he, in the churchyard?
Like he sets up all this stuff, and then goes into the church, sees Jessica there.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Does he put a crucifix on her?
Now, what he does... I'm trying to think. He does use the crucifix, because I do remember when he's fighting Johnny, at one point he throws a Bible with a crucifix around it into his coffin, doesn't he? And Johnny starts whining. Before the fight's...
But he goes in, and then he just leaves for a bit longer, and then Dracula shows up, and then Van Helsing shows back up.
Jessica's got a cross on, but doesn't Dracula pull it off himself? And get
Dracula kind of it doesn't so much as grab it as do that thing if you got to pick up something hot, where it's just sort of
just rake it off.
Just sort of whip it.
Yeah. So. And Dracula's fighting old Van Helsing, but Van Helsing shivs him, which is amazing.
Yeah, he keeps stabbing him
with a silver knife, I think. Which is another bit of vampire lore we don't hear much of, really. But
they're there's a bit earlier where a detective's joke is like, "Oh, should we bust out the silver bullets?" And Van Helsing's like, "Silver bullets are really inefficient at this. Just get a knife. Just make a knife." So.
Yeah, but it's right. Silver does do vampires, he stabs him, so he shivs Dracula, who throws him out through the window or something. Yeah. But he's also dying. But then he's lying on the floor, holding his hand to Jessica, and Van Helsing's like, "Oh no, Van Helsing's upstairs, isn't he? I can't remember that." And he says, "Jessica, don't go near him."
Yeah, and then he chucks holy water at him.
No, Jessica pulls out the knife, so Dracula's full strength again, I think, or certainly stronger than he was. And then he goes for Van Helsing, who leads him outside and throws holy water in his face. So it's a bit like the acid in the face in Phantom of the Opera or something, right?
Yeah.
And then Dracula falls into the...
Dracula jumps into the pit.
Falls into the pit, and then Lorrimore gets on top of him and gets a shovel into his back, pushing him down into the stakes. Yeah. Fantastic. And then he turns to ash, and Jessica wakes up from and then they're right. Oh, we should have mentioned they did spot the grave of their ancestor, Lawrence Van Helsing, in the graveyard, and Lorimer just reads out his
he reads out
in Latin. Yeah, and then they get the titles, say an overlay,
It just
saying
says "Rest in Final Peace,"
and it ends, and
that's that.
Now this, I think we've described this with some enthusiasm,
Yeah.
because it was bad,
was terrible.
but it wasn't boring. It wasn't boring, was it? Or did you find it boring?
Well, there were a lot of bits. The whole, basically anything not to do with Dracula or the Van Helsings was boring as hell.
Yeah, I have to say,
stuff was atrocious.
A lot of the scenes went on way too long. They could have been halved a lot. They just kept kind of saying the same thing twice in a different way. I found a lot of scenes like that, which I don't mind when Peter Cushing's in it, right? Yeah. But it was it could have been a lot tighter, but then it would have been a super short film, I guess. So, yeah. And it was originally called Dracula Today. And it was filmed in Chelsea. That is, okay. Yeah. It was filmed around Chelsea. That was funky Chelsea we were looking at in that. Yeah. And apparently the soundtrack was composed by a member who was a member of what used to be the band Manfred Mann. They're probably most famous for the song Mighty Quinn. I don't know. They did a few songs. But he deliberately did it in a blaxploitation style. Nice. And that was an American band called Stowground. Apparently, they originally had the Faces, which are much more famous and better band, in the frame to be in this, but they didn't do it, so they got this other band involved, singing Alligator Man and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay. I was wondering why they put the music in. I think it's a we saw this in Lust for a Vampire with Strange Love.
Yeah.
I think it's a continuation of trying to put pop songs in films to try and get the young people into it, or something. Look, from Butch Cassidy, right? And Kelly's Heroes and MASH and things like that. I think it was something like that, but these songs were never in the charts or even released the singles as far as I know. I don't really know. So I don't know, really. Yeah. So it's a bit of a break from the last one. The last Dracula one was Scars of Dracula, right?
Yes.
Which was a reboot of the series anyway, because it had no continuity. And this doesn't have any continuity. In fact, that first fight is set like 10 years or so before the first Dracula movie. So it's mad, right? It don't work.
Yeah.
But who cares?
Nothing lines up. Everything is...
Yeah. So, it's... A lot of people like this film.
Why?
Yeah, it's fun. It's camp, isn't it? It's camp. Let me tell you some of the reviews. Most were mixed to negative reviews, right? Roger Ebert gave it 1 star out of 4, for example. And some of the comments were the attempt to reconcile Transylvania with Southwest 3, which is another name for Chelsea, merely sends the script haywire, right? And there's phrases like "dig the music, kids" and all this. What? And a lot of people say it's the weakest instalment so far. Others say it's a lot of fun. I'll tell you who likes this. Tim Burton. Tim Burton's a big fan of this.
Tracks.
Yeah,
that very much tracks.
In fact, he was going to call them... there's a new Beetlejuice film coming out. His original working title for that was Beetlejuice 2024 AD. In tribute to this
I thought it was Beetlejuice Goes to Hawaii.
No, now it's called Beetlejuice, apparently.
Oh, yeah. But
it was in Hawaii. Yeah, you are right. Yeah. And there's also some nods to it. There was a recent Dracula miniseries on BBC 2020 where the final instalment is set in the modern day, and there's definitely some nods to this.
If it's got Johnny Alucard in it, I'm going to fight everyone at the BBC.
No. It hasn't got no Johnny Alucard. Surprisingly, as I said, there is a sequel to this, almost a direct sequel, and we're going to be covering it next, because it is the next one that Hammer did. Satanic Rites of Dracula. Now, so this has got hippies. The next one is kinda imagine Austin Powers doing a Dracula film.
God.
It's not meant to be a comedy, but it's very James Bondy. Anyway, yeah, I don't want to juice it too much because, you got to form your own opinions.
Yeah.
But he has got, like, killer hippies.
Great. Okay, more hippies. Love that.
Yeah. Well, I say hippies, they're like burly stuntmen in afro wigs. Mostly. But we'll be covering that next time. I'm kind of tempted. Let's just hammer through the rest of the hammer because we've only got 4 left.
Yeah.
And 3 of those, hold on, 2 of those are Dracula, one's a vampire, one's a Frankenstein. So we got some, at least we're in familiar territory kind of thing. But I kind of want to see Satanic Rites of Dracula real soon as well. But no, let's keep it monthly. It's kind of more fun. But yeah.
No, monthly, yeah.
Monthly we do the hammer. So it's not a great film.
Yeah, this is bad.
And it's stunning if you think. It's a bit like Lugosi, though, right? He didn't play Dracula again. He only played Dracula in 2 films, I think. And those were Dracula and Abbott and Costello.
No.
Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Those were the 2 times, in Universal anyway, that he played Dracula, which is bizarre when you think about it. Of all the people, Lugosi was dirt cheap, couldn't get any work, and they used other actors instead of using Bela Lugosi, which is mad, right?
Yeah.
And it's so weird that this is only the second outing of Cushing as Van, because everyone, when you say Van Helsing, it's Cushing, isn't it? It's Cushing you think of, and he didn't do that many films as Van Helsing.
It's the second time that these 2 are together.
Yeah.
It's not the second time he's played Van Helsing.
No, it's the 3rd time he's played Van Helsing. But even so, he didn't play him that much, and it's still iconic, right? Same with Christopher Lee's Dracula. It's still iconic. But yeah, not a great film, but I found it quite a lot of fun. I found some of the scenes did drag, but I quite liked the goofiness of the whole thing. It just felt so utterly weird. And not Hammer at all, really, apart from the fact Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing were in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, anytime you see 30-somethings playing teenagers is good for a giggle. Apparently. Yes. Anything else you want to say about it? Any final thoughts before we score?
No real final thoughts. I think I put all my...
Are you glad you saw it? Are you glad you saw it?
Well, I'm glad I'm completing the amount of Hammer films.
Did you like this better than any of the recent Hammers we've watched?
Yes.
Yeah, well, there you go. There you go.
Hammers, they've been rough. Just not because of any poor quality, because just nothing. It feels like nothing happens through 90% of the film.
Yeah, stuff happened in this though, right? I mean, though it was interesting that they kept Dracula in one place. I reckon Christopher Lee only had 3 days shooting in him or something. Or would only agree to that much, and they had to cram them all in one set just to make it easy. That's what I was wondering that. But he gives it his all. He's not coasting, is he? He's really going for it. And it's kind of nice to see Van Helsing and Dracula having a go at each other again as well. And great, I have to say, one of my favourite Hammer openings scenes.
Yeah,
I really like the opening scene on this. Yeah, it's pretty rad. All right then, what would you give this score-wise?
I'd give this a -5 or something like that.
Pretty, not so poor, not even that good.
Zero. Remember, 0 is the worst you can get. It's it's okay, but it's a bad movie. There's no getting around this. It's a bad movie.
So your main and max is 10 to -10, right?
Yeah, 10 -10 is.
Okay. Well, mine's 0 to 5, and I give this a 3. And I think I'm being a bit generous there, to be honest. But I do like it. It's kind of. I really enjoy this one because of. I'll tell you what. I haven't seen it in years, but I still remember the Johnny Alucard fight. And I still remember the opening scene quite distinctly. You will remember those scenes, you know? So there is that, right? So, yeah. All right, let's wind up there. So next time we do Hammer, it is the Satanic Rites of Dracula. So again, Satanism rearing its head in the Dracula world here.
Yeah.
All right then. Okay. Just thing I want to mention, I think I've mentioned this book before. There is a really fine book called England Screaming, where writer Sean Hogan weaves together this kind of history of Britain, alternative history of Britain, woven through horror films, where he connects all sorts of different films into the same history. And it's either, I can't remember, it might be he did an American version of it. I can't remember which one.
Oh yeah, is that the one where everyone's scared of Jersey Wales?
Yeah. But in this one, Damien Thorne is in one of the series, Damien Thorne's the significant character. But it turns out there's someone who really hates him who's powerful, and that is Dracula. Dracula thinks he's the natural successor to Satan in hell.
Okay.
And Dracula's pissed off at Damien Thorne, so that's kind of an interesting thing to read about. Just thought I'd mention it. And I really think when he's talking about Dracula, he's talking about Christopher Lee's Dracula. You know, it comes through quite distinctly in the imagery he uses. He doesn't say it explicitly, but you can just tell the way Dracula thinks and acts. It's Christopher Lee's Dracula who's pitting himself against Damien Thorne. Which is kind of interesting. We'll have to cover that series sometime. It's only a short series, the Omen series. It's kind of interesting. Anyway. All right, then. Yeah, they're worth a look. There's an original trilogy and there's a few like remakes and ads on, which are shit. Absolute shit. Though there is a recent one which I haven't seen, which I think is some sort of prequel. I've not seen it.
Yeah,
so
like
I
the
don't know
first Omen or something like that.
Yeah, they did a one called Omen 4, where it was Damien's daughter, and it was horrible. It was a TV film. It was horrible. And then they did a remake with Liv Schreiber. Liv Schreiber's usually a great actor, but the remake was just bad. The original film's way better. Anyway, we're kind of getting off topic now.
Yeah, we got to
but that's something we could do soon. It's only 3 films is the main set, really. And it introduced Sam Neill to the world as well, the third Damien film. So there is that as well. Right. Anyway. Back to we're so bored of this film. We're talking about other films. So yeah, this was a really weird detour for Hammer to go into this. But I think they're on their last legs. I think they spent all their money on the 7 or 8 films they made the year before and didn't make enough back. So they were like just trying out shit, and it was just weird, right? Very weird. All right then. Anyway. Let's wind it up there. So, bye from me.
Bye.